Hi, Mary Jo. Welcome to the Women Awaken podcast.
Hey, Whitney, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's a Friday. And I get to sit here with my first YouTube tarot reader.
Stop it.
Yeah, the
Really?
first time. Yeah, the first time I've had one on my show, which I have to say I'm a little bit starstruck because Mary Jo, I spend a lot of time watching tarot readings on YouTube, more than I'd ever like anybody to know, to be honest. It's a favorite pastime. I discovered it years ago,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's beautiful. It feels like channeling, and I feel like you often find the readings you're meant to hear. So I take them to heart often. I've gotten beautiful guidance from them, particularly from yours. You
Oh,
have
well, thank you very much.
wonderful
I
readings. You have a
appreciate that.
beautiful, abundant, vibrant channel. Would you like to tell our listeners about it?
Sure. My channel is Soulful Revolution, and I started it right after the eclipse in 2017.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah, yes. So the
That feels
eclipse,
pertinent because we just had this giant eclipse on the 8th. So that feels okay. That feels resonant.
yes.
Mm.
So that was a 7-year cycle. So there's a new fresh energy coming into the channel, which is really exciting because right after that eclipse in 2017, I started the channel and it was very quick to catch on. I had
Oh.
no idea that other people were reading tarot on YouTube well, let me just put it this way. I was unclear as to how other people were doing it. I was just like, I'm going to read tarot on YouTube. And so when I started doing it, it just kind of expanded really quickly. And it was such a lovely feeling. And also, I have attracted some really amazing people to the channel. I'm very honored to have them on the channel as viewers, as people who, I start to know people's names and I start to know what's going on with them. So it's lovely to have this community that we built. I'm very honored. It is their co-creative community with me.
What a wonderful thing. Co-creation. I feel like that's the term of the decade, the season, this time on Earth. Co-creation, learning that we're all in this together rather than certain people having their, rise to success and everything. It's we're doing it together. Collaboration, co-creation. I just really feel like those are the
100%.
terms to move forward.
Yes, indeed.
So I
Mhm.
love that you're embodying that, because I will say that from someone on the outside, I look at all these tarot readers and it feels like a pretty isolated position, because I honestly look at it and feel exhausted for you all, because I wonder, how do they keep up this schedule of so many readings every single week? And they are diligent to it. So yeah,
Oh,
that just
yeah.
fascinates me. So maybe you could share a bit about that before, because I definitely want to go back, because you have an interesting story about how you even got into this line of work, because this is not where you started. But tell
No,
me a bit
no.
about what it's been like to keep up such a
Mm.
popular tarot channel on YouTube.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be able to do it without my Mars being in Capricorn, honestly.
That's the whole key,
So,
the key to success.
yeah, kind of, because everything else is air and fire, so very ungrounded and very
Oh.
creative, but Mars and Capricorn every day, diligence, consistency, and Mars is about putting action forward. So, I kind of attribute it to that. But I will say that I have met a lot of the other tarot readers and astrologers and everything on YouTube. Different people come across my path. I mean, Allie took my business class and then her channel went crazy and all of that stuff, which was really lovely. I was so honored to be part of that too. So uh the schedule is, I have never been, well, that's not true. I have been this diligent and consistent, but always I used to be a TV news producer. So I think that's what you're getting at here about my previous life.
Yeah.
I worked for NBC and for ABC. And so you get to know everything is on a schedule, right? Like 6 o'clock hits, you're on, like there's no choice. And so that kind of experience has translated to me into creating my own little TV station here. Soulful Revolution is my own TV station. And
Oh.
um, I'm really interested in making sure the viewer is getting what they need. So there's a lot for me about like, okay, what would I want? Because a lot of the viewers on the channel are there's a similar frequency, a similar vibration to me. So if I'm like, okay, well, I really think that I should be doing this, I do it. It's amazing that other people are resonating with that at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It is so fascinating to me to do general readings and see how much it resonates with different people. And all around the globe, thousands of people are having a similar experience. If that doesn't show you that we're all connected, oh my God, isn't
It's
that insane?
really
And
fascinating. I've had general readings that I've listened to that feel more aligned than some private readings I've gotten, personal readings. And I'm like, how does that even make sense? But there's so many where I'm like, how did this person know what happened to me in the past few weeks? Like, how did they know my life? It's wild, but it's
it's
that shared
true. It's true.
experience.
I love that that absolute proof that when, you know, I'm putting this reading out, and I know I've done this at least 100 times over the last 7 years, that I will put out a general reading and I'll be like, who is that for? Like, what did I just say? And you know, sometimes they're challenging. You know, I did give an assignment to my Pathfinder group last week. I said, here's your assignment for the week. I want you to just be in YouTube, and whatever reading scares you, whatever title scares you, I want you to watch that, because I think people shy away when there can be challenging information in a reading. And I'm like, I think you're kind of missing out on a really important lesson. If a title scares you, I'm going to challenge you to watch that reading and see what comes through that may not have come through a Hearts and Flowers or a Fairy Dust and Unicorns kind of reading.
Yeah.
And without doubt, like in my Facebook group with them, with Pathfinders, they were like, oh, wow. I'm like, don't pay attention to the sign. I don't care if you have no Cancer in your chart, but that's the reading. Like, stop thinking you don't, because you've got everything, just in different amounts.
Mm-hmm.
And without just, it was incredible to see the response from that, and how gratifying that was to have that proved back to me.
Interesting. Now I have to ask this, Mary Jo, because I also always think about this when I watch all these different readers online is, I mean, how do you find your general audience? Because you're opening yourself to the internet community who are not always kind. And so there's two things I wondered about. One is I imagine you get some people who are like, this isn't accurate. Like, what are you talking about? But I would imagine others are so diligent in listening to your readings that they are like, where's the reading? Like, where's this week's reading? Where have you been? Like, I always think that if somebody, because sometimes readers will like miss a few days, and I'm like, I bet that people are coming for them, because people are very tuned into their readings, right? Like, they're like, what the heck? Where are you? Does that happen?
It's true. Well, I will say, and I talked with Colleen, is my friend, and she also works with me on the channel. She's been with me. We've known each other since we worked together at a marketing agency after my TV experience. And we'll always say to each other, my goodness, how lucky we are, because I thought that too. And you know, when I teach my business class, I'm like, you need to see someone's eyes. Even there's plenty of readers on YouTube, very successful readers, who you don't see their face and all of that. That's fine. I feel my connection is because people see me, people get to know who I am, and I share a lot of my story with them. I share, you know, especially in Pathfinders, I share a lot. And I have found that people who are haters, like, they bounce off. They kind of bounce off. If you're, you know, paying attention to your frequency and vibration, if you're doing your spiritual hygiene, if you're doing your work, I just don't see the comments. Like, it's not something that shows up. You know, people will always write, well, that didn't resonate for me. And the training I got at ABC and NBC was like, turn the channel. Like, why are you wasting even your time? If something doesn't resonate for you, you know, within the first 30 seconds, just move on. You don't need to tell me that, because I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to her, right? So it's kind of irrelevant. It's like, well, this Scorpio reading didn't resonate for you. It's not like a soap opera. It's not like one follows the other. Okay. So maybe next week will resonate for you, but you have to understand that, you know, this is, you're keying into something that may not resonate for you. You just need to move on.
Yes, definitely. And Mary Jo, I'd love for you to, if we could go back a bit and for you to share more specifically about the work that you did before this, because interestingly, I just had a listener reach out to me and she said, I really like your podcast. I've been enjoying it. I would love if you would talk about how to find our way towards our purpose, because this girl is in college and she said, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I don't, sometimes I feel drawn towards something, but it doesn't seem practical. So I'm curious about your path to the work that you first did and how did that feel to you? Because working as a producer on TV sounds great. Like most people are like, whoa, wow, that's awesome. So I'm curious, like what took you there and what about it was not fulfilling for you? Because you speak on your site and in your story about how it just wasn't, it was kind of empty. It was hollow for you. And you had to realize that and move into something completely different, which most people would be like, you're doing what?
Yeah.
You're going to start a
So
tarot channel?
right. I started this YouTube channel when I turned 50.
Oh,
And
love it.
so seriously, so 8 years ago. So if you look at the trajectory of my career, it's all the same. I'm a communicator, I'm a storyteller. It's all the same. It just looks different. Okay. It just looks different. And there's a different methodology, there's a different tool set, there's a different whatever. But when, I hate to say this, but like, I want to, speak to the idea that, first of all, whatever you're drawn to, if this is something on your path, you're going to be drawn to it. So if you are drawn to something, give it a try, because what's going to be happening from here forward, we are going to have a different experience of careers, a different experience of education, a different experience of all these things. So I went to college in the 80s. Okay. So way different experience,
Awesome.
right? 80s. All right. Way different experience. And I went into being a producer, mostly because I didn't have the self-confidence in myself when I left to be on camera. And I recognize now that I had a lot of messaging growing up about how too much self-aggrandizement would be a bad thing. And, making yourself visible is a bad thing. Be smaller, don't be bigger, right? All of these kind of make yourself smaller kind of messaging that I was getting. And, I'm a Sagittarius, so we take up a lot of space. All right. We take up a lot of space. Our energy takes up a lot of space. So I was a producer. It burned me out because I recognized, and I didn't recognize this until I was in my 40s. So for that person who's in college, you have a Saturn return happening when you're 29, and that is going to kick your butt in terms of like grow up. And it's going to show you some lessons that are going to pivot you possibly. Okay. And then it pivoted me within that career. And then now in my second Saturn return, the second time Saturn comes back, it's about legacy. Am I really doing what I'm meant to be doing? So I had worked through television. I left television. I was working in marketing for a while, PR. I was pitching people to the networks as guests, as people to be on camera, as a guest or as an interview for, different kinds of segments, and all of it and video marketing for people, teaching them to be on video and all of that. And like, it was all great, but I recognized that I was doing the thing for other people that I wanted for myself. And so it really burned me out to the place of like almost, and this was in 2016, 2017, I nearly ran aground. I nearly was bankrupt. Everything was a mess, a total mess. And I found myself in this office of this woman attorney. And I said, I don't know what to do here. She's like, try something else. But in the meantime, I'm going to take this away from you, all of these. And she gave me like permission in some way that the messaging of my upbringing did not. And so she gave me this permission she wasn't like, making me feel bad about where I was. She was just like, okay, here we are. I'm going to I will protect you from these people. I will take away these bills and I will take away this. This is what you do. This was like in July. And then she said, come back after Thanksgiving. We'll sign the paperwork and we'll file after the first of the year. I see you have a couple of projects. You have enough money to get you through. We're all set. But in the meantime, I want you to do those projects, but I also want you to do something you enjoy. I want you to find joy again, because you're completely drained and burned out. And, she wasn't saying low vibration. She wasn't saying any of that, but now I recognize it. So I came home and I literally sat down, and it was a couple of weeks, and I was like, what am I going to do? And like, I have bookcases all over my house, and every single book, tarot, astrology, all over my house. And I was sitting there, I'm looking at the bookcases, and it just is like a piece of furniture. And then I was like, oh, look at what I'm interested in. Look at what I'm interested in. Hundreds and hundreds of books. And so, I know how to do camera. I'm teaching people about being on camera. I know how to make video. I know how to do all this stuff. So I just started messing around, and I've read tarot since college. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing this. And then someone sent me an article from the New York Times that said tarot is a huge thing on YouTube. And I was like, get out. What are you talking about? Like, how does that even work? So I was making the videos, but then I had this kind of like, a note from the universe kind of saying, hey, this is a thing. This is a thing. And so I zoomed around and I found a couple people that I liked, and I was watching them, and I was like, oh, okay. So I'm using I'm plugging into the energy of Gemini. I'm plugging in, I pay attention to what's going on in the astrology for someone who might be a Gemini. I'm paying attention to that, and I'm plugging into it. I'm just like, okay, whatever wants to come through. Don't edit yourself. Don't pick up the reading if you don't like it. Please don't do that. And just doing it. I learned about the business model. I learned about how that all works, how YouTube works. And I just started doing it. And when I went back to the lawyer after Thanksgiving, I'm like, I don't think we're gonna have to do this. And she was like, what do you mean? And I told her, I said, my YouTube channel, I already have about 15,000 subscribers, and I can see where it's going. And she was like, you're kidding me. So I was like, listen, I will pay all of this. We don't have to mess with it. Let's do it. She helped me navigate it and give me time and everything like that. And it was all paid off in about 6 months. And I was like, wow. I was even surprised at how popular the channel was. Right after I first started doing it, there was a lot of people that came on YouTube in 2017, right after that eclipse. And it's interesting to see.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, that was way before my days of watching tarot, even doing tarot. So just as you said that these things kind of will come into your life, I'm a tarot reader, and I had never really explored it. I was actually one of those that was kind of reluctant about tarot, because I thought, well, I don't want an oracle to tell me that, like, at this day and time, something terrible is going to happen, and then I spend my life in fear. And then I actually had a friend in 2019 who was a reader, and she offered to do a reading, and I shared my concerns, and she was like, she's like, well, of course, if you don't want to, she said, but I see tarot as more just sharing the energies that are sort of coming up in your situation around you. And she said, and tarot really never dictates the future. It just kind of gives you insight, maybe a little bit of guidance, maybe some blind spots you're not seeing. And I said, well, that sounds good. And she did the reading, and I was like, what the heck? Like, how did you know everything going on in my life? How did you know about this new emphasis, this new direction, these new important factors in my life? And that was the end of 2019. And I went to a New Year's party for 2020. And this girl brought out a bunch of decks after we were in 2020. It was after the ball dropped. And she said, who wants a reading? And I said, I do. And so she did a reading for me. And then when she was done, she looked at me and she said, this deck doesn't belong to me anymore. This is yours. This is for you to take. And I just got chills, and I felt like I was being initiated. And ever since then, I became a tarot reader. So it is interesting how these things come to us. It's of course no surprise, because you said something, Mary Jo, that I talk about all the time on my show, which is that we are moving into this era where we are ready to completely reconstruct the way that we do education, the way that we work in this world, the way that we
Yes.
go about our lives in this world. And these tools of divination are coming in because we're getting higher guidance. We're getting the guidance from the infinite universe that is infinite. So there's no limits. And we live on this earth where we
Right.
feel like, no, there's about 10 different things you can do with your life. And that's it. But there's something deep within so many of us that says, I don't think that's true. And I think that there's ways to tap into and explore other avenues and other possibilities that we don't feel we have access to with just our five senses. And to me, tarot is an inception into that exploration of, well, what is going on that we can't see? And also what connects us all? Because you spoke to the power of a general reading, and people would think like, well, how could Virgo's reading, I'm a Virgo, how could Virgo's reading for the week possibly relate to all Well, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. And, something you were just saying about tapping in and recognizing there's different ways of doing things or different ideas out there of how to live our lives and everything like that. It's just so interesting to me that I think the thing we're also upending is the idea that there's one pie. So that means, to a lot of people on this planet, there's still people who believe that if you get more, I get less, which is 100% wrong. Okay. That doesn't exist anymore. It's like, make more pie. Just make more pie.
There's infinite pie. There's so much pie.
It's unlimited. And so I
Yeah.
think that's what we're dealing with right now, where there's this, we've had Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008 when the banks fell off a cliff. And it was like anything that can't sustain a Pluto tower moment dissolved. And so, we needed to create different kinds of banking regulations and different kinds of structures so that we could be better at that. Things now, Pluto has just moved into Aquarius this year. And there has been this feeling of a little bit of opening up, a little bit of justice, a little bit of things happening. And it's now going to go into retrograde. I hate to tell you this, it's going to go into retrograde, and it will go back into Capricorn September, October, and half of November. And then it will go direct and won't go back into Aquarius until next year. So there's this challenge between tradition, which is Capricorn, traditional stuff, and things must have a certain way of being founded or foundational elements. Aquarius is like, we're all connected. We all have this kind of open locking arms, and if you get something good, that means the energy of something good is around you, and I'm cheering you on, and my light's getting brighter and your light's getting brighter. Capricorn doesn't believe in that shtick. Capricorn's like, if I can't touch it, taste it, knock on it, it's not real. And so we're having this back and forth right now between those two energies, and you're seeing it in the world, right? You're seeing it in the world, a lot of things going on. We also have some Mars retrograde happening later this year. But my point is that it really is a different way. The age of Aquarius is really about that Aquarian. We are all connected. And as soon as we get further into it, a little deeper into it, that will happen in our lifetimes, I am confident that we will see 100 different options. That person you're talking about from college, like, what's practical? What is practical? Is it practical to grind yourself into a fine powder in a certain kind of job because you think it's practical? Maybe not. Maybe that's terrible. You're grinding away your health. That's not good. That's not a recipe for longevity.
Absolutely. And that's the case for every single sector of our society. We all just kind of stand around saying, so clearly our financial system doesn't work, our healthcare system doesn't work, our educational system isn't working. Like, so could we maybe have gotten it, or I don't want to call it wrong, but is there maybe a different way? Right? That was a distinction I heard in my spiritual journey that really hit me, is let go of right and wrong, good or bad, and just say what works, what doesn't. Because then it's without, the universe doesn't judge. It doesn't have a up or down system or good or bad. It just says, this is moving towards something that's working. This is moving towards something that isn't working. But even going in the wrong direction is a part of evolution and growth. But we've gone in one very distinct direction for a long time, which is one that is all about, just as you said, every man for himself, this zero-sum game of like, if I'm not winning, I'm losing. If I don't get the most, I get the least. Fight for power, greed, innovation, dominating others. And we're all sitting here like, so is this really as important as we've said it is? Having power over
Mhm.
what has that gotten us? We just keep having to have wars to kill more people for what? So that people can
Right,
live with all these
right,
people dying, and
right.
none of it. No, we all know it's not working. I think that's what's happening. And just
Yeah,
as you said, I'm sure it's in the stars. I'm not as attuned to astrology as I like. I'm just not as
yeah,
educated, and I can't speak it as well, but I very much appreciate astrology because it really does represent the shifts and changes that we see. And so I appreciate when I hear about different placements that are occurring, like you said, like Capricorn going into, or what's happening, you said in like September, October, November with Capricorn.
with Pluto,
Pluto.
yeah,
And
because
so
Pluto,
Pluto's big, right? Because that's like
right,
looking at the underbelly, isn't it? Because Pluto's like the
it is. And
underworld.
Pluto moves so damn slow. It's like 247 years for it to go all the way around. So the United States is having a Pluto return right now, and no human being can ever have a Pluto return, right?
That's
So we're having this
right.
Pluto return.
I remember
So
when
we're
that started.
right. So we're basically reviewing, rethinking what are all of those things that you said about the hierarchical structure. Capricorn is very hierarchical, and Aquarius is very egalitarian.
Mhm.
And the signs that are next to each other have have a love-hate relationship with each other. So Capricorn looks at Aquarius and says, you're cold and you're a flake. And Aquarius looks at Capricorn and says, you're rigid and stuck in the past. And so the Pluto going back and forth between them, eventually what will shake out is Capricorn will look at Aquarius and go, you got some vision, man. I like that. And Aquarius will look at Capricorn and says, you get it done. I like that
You've
too.
got a
Right? Like you get
plan.
it done.
You're willing to do the
Right.
work. We
Right.
make a
And
good
so we have
team.
that. Yes, we could make a good team. And
Yeah.
I think that's where this is going to end up going is there's not so much look at the differences between us, but um the things that bind us and the ideas that it's not just either or, it's both and it's all of it. It's like those things can exist. Just because this exists doesn't mean that can't exist. And I think that's going to be an eye-opening thing. And if anybody who's like holding on for dear life to a structure or a type of living that isn't really going to be you know um, able to exist, are going to have like the hardest challenges. It's going to be tower moment, tower moment, tower moment, and stuff like that.
Shocking, disorienting, what's happening, what's going on. And on
Yes.
that note, Mary Jo, I'd like to talk a little bit because I imagine you experienced this going from one very different field of work to another that's more esoteric and more spiritual. I know for me in my spiritual path, just as you described, I have people in my life, namely family members, who are very much grounded in like the 3D, I call it. Like, I don't mean that to be like
Yeah.
a minimizing statement. I don't, it's not it's just they
Yes.
see
Right.
things as like, no, this is the world and this is how it is. And we're all,
Yep.
things might change, they might not. But then I've kind of taken off into outer space and I'm like, everything is changing. And there you can channel information from higher beings so we can get more ideas on earth. And they're like, what? They're like, are you
Yeah.
okay? And people who are like weirded out that I did tarot and all these, or that I started this podcast called Women Waken. And so
Yeah.
there's those of us who are already kind of shooting off into the atmosphere. And I offer this often to my audience, which is like allowing things to fall away that no longer align
Yes.
with you when you're on that path, because you took the bold step of you felt called to start this channel. And we're going to talk more about the broader business you have, which is Soulful Revolution, which is a beautiful name. But when we do that, we lose people in our life who
Mhm.
aren't going with us. They don't understand it. And
Yep.
not always. Some people are like, I don't get it, but I like it and I support it and I'm curious
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But I've had people who
Yeah.
are like, I don't respect it really. I think it's kind of
Yes.
BS. And I say, well, then I need to detach with love because I don't, who wants someone in
Correct.
their life who doesn't respect them and who's always kind of looking down on them? So I'd love to hear your journey. Like, did you experience any of that from going from a very traditional, a very traditional place in society that people again revere? They're like, wow, you're in television, to I'm going to go on YouTube and do tarot. And they're like a gypsy? You're going to have a crystal ball?
Well, I will say to you, first of all, I'm adopted. So one of the things you learn when you're an adopted kid is that you make family everywhere. You make family with the energetic resonance that you have with people. And I definitely have family members who have been very strongly triggered, in such a way that even though I'm coming from a place of love, it does cause a lot of problems. And so I've just had to detach. And I've just been like, you know what? Because I have a different experience of family, coming from a place of I make my family. I've chosen my family. And so it has been a little bit eye-opening and a little bit, I don't know, kind of disappointing that, the focus on the money and success or anything like that has been the only way of like, hey, add a girl kind of thing, instead of the idea of
The beautiful
connecting with people.
messages
We're
you're
all
giving to
connected.
people.
Right. Instead of that, like, and so, I do believe that I have kind of, I mean, maybe this happens to you in your 50s. It definitely was something that happened to me where I kind of stopped caring that there was a reaction. It's like, yeah, but I'm not really doing it for you. So, you know, and, peace out, right? Like, do your thing, you do your thing. And, I don't really, I don't really respect a lot of things that are in their lives either, frankly, because there's a lot of hurting people and other things that go on with a certain kind of traditional work that someone might do. And so I'm like, oh, I haven't liked that for a long time, but I focus on the person. I would focus on the person. And so when it became time for someone to like see me for who I am, it was like, nope, nope, I'm not going to reciprocate that. I'm not going to reciprocate that. And I was like, okay, that's up to you. And so don't get me wrong, it's very challenging to let go of family, to let go of people who you've had in your life for a really long time. I've let go of friends that I've known since I was little, 50 years. Over 50-year friendships have, sort of moved off. And I've been like, well, it's the time for it to go. It's the time for it to move on. And,
Yeah.
we've completed some kind of learning together. And so I've just, sort of made it known that I'm, moving on. Most of the time, if someone unhooks from you, if you detach from someone, it's time. Because if someone is really meant to be in your life for your best and highest good, for their best and highest good, even if it's challenging, they will stay. But if the thing is over, if the lesson is over, if the connection is over, they will go. And you just have to ask spirit to have it be, a kind and gentle releasing instead of it being jagged. Like, we don't want anything jagged.
It's not pleasant when it's jagged. And it's great that you're speaking to this. I've been talking about this often in recent episodes because of the recent eclipse season we had, which to me was very powerfully about things being yanked out of your life suddenly that maybe just came into your life and you thought, wow, what the heck? And
Yes.
after like reviewing it and hearing back from listeners, I feel like it was almost, I feel like there is a shift happening, and tell me if this is in the astrology, but people really moving on to their soul path, to their path of destiny, that shift is happening this year where it's like, it's go time. There's not much, like things are really coming online. And also what you spoke about, the changes that are going to happen, we need people who are going to be grounded, and they're going to, for those who are going to be disoriented and scared, they're going to look to
Yes.
us now and they're going to say, "What, you're okay?" And we're going to say, "Yes, we saw
Yep.
this, we understand this."
I agree. I agree. I don't trust readers or people who are sort of doing what I'm doing. If you're not grounded, if you don't have some kind of grounding, you have a 3D body, you have a physical life, your intuition is in your body. And so downloads and higher self and other things come from elsewhere, yes, but your intuition in this age of AI, if you do not have intuition, if you are not physically, somatically connected to your guidance, it's going to be challenging and you're going to feel whipped around. Okay. Because we're already dealing with what's real, what's not. And we're barely into this, right? We're barely into this,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who aren't grounded, it's going to feel, I just had the visual of when if you've ever gone out like boogie boarding or wave surfing and you just get crushed by a wave and you feel like you're getting stuck in like the undertow and you don't know what's
Yeah.
up from down. And that's what it can be like when you don't have that sense of, your own inner wisdom and knowing. And I speak to that a lot. And I do also believe that that's the era we're moving into is the sovereign being, where we recognize maybe I don't need everybody else to tell me what to think, what to do, what to believe.
Correct.
And that's also going to be a big game changer for humanity because we've spent all of our history having people tell us
Mhm.
this is what is so, this is what history is. And the whole time, all of us have had our intuition. Intuition is always there. It's our
Yes.
soul. And it said,
Yes. Yes.
do you really think that's true? Do you really believe that? And we've thought, no. And people
No.
feel that every day now. I was just talking to another client who said, I have this job and I don't like it. And I'm so unfulfilled, but I'm so scared. What do I do without it? And so many of us
Yeah.
live this way. And it's like we're living imprisoned by these fears of financial worries and all these messages that say, like, you better be careful because you got to be planning for retirement. And what if something terrible happens to you? And I mean, I won't go off on it too much, but I think you and I could both agree that it's overwhelming for most humans. And not
Yes.
everybody
Yeah.
has the insight that you and I have. Like when you jumped ship and tried something totally new, because you looked around your house and said, clearly there's
Yeah.
something that I'm really into, that my soul is
Yeah.
like yearning to do. And I wish more people could do
Absolutely.
that.
Well, I will say one of the things that helped me too was astrology. And this is I am teaching this a lot. I do talk about it a lot on the channel. And there are some things in your astrology that will help you see the next chapter. And I will just say to you that if it wasn't for me understanding about something called your North Node in your birth chart, the nodal, it's a node of the moon. So it's a mathematical point. It's not an asteroid, it's not a planet, but it is a point around the ellipsis of your moon. And when you understand this north node has a south node, right? As north node has a south node, they're 180 degrees apart. That north node is the purpose and mission. It's the thing you're here to do. Is it always a job? No, no. Sometimes it could be an energy. Sometimes it could be a way of doing relationship. It is your purpose and mission for this. And it's always something brand new to your soul, brand new. And so people, usually what will happen is they will cling on to the south node, which is your natural skills and talents, the things you bring to the table. And it can be a new way of delivering those things for sure. But the south node will jam up at some point in your life. If you're not naturally kind of going back and forth between your north and south node, that south node will grind to a halt faster than a car that has not had an oil change. And so you're going toward that north node and embracing that new mission and purpose. And what will happen is the south node will open up again. So their natural skills and talents will be activated and be allowed to help you support that north node mission. The only way I figured that out, and then I also was like, all right, so I'm going toward this north node in Gemini, which is about being a reporter of energy in the 8th house. And I looked over to my midheaven, which is my career, and it's Leo. You need to be seen doing it.
Wow.
8th house is about astrology and tarot and hidden and secrets and, connection to the mystical realms in many ways, especially about mediumship, which I am now learning more about and expanding in. And I was like, that Leo midheaven says I need to be seen doing this. And how wrong I was to not be in front of the camera when I left college, and how my lack of self-confidence was the thing that kept me from actually actively doing something that would have been in alignment with that north node.
Wow. Mary Jo, do you do astrology readings for people? Do you read people's charts? Do you do?
I haven't done a private reading in 5 years. I've certified a group of readers. They are all awesome. They all have their own specialties because I got tired of saying I don't do private readings anymore. And so I wanted to have a resource for people. So I have done that. But I love doing astrology readings, and I really think I'm going to get back to it.
Oh,
I have a group. I have a group of every Thursday I do an astrology group, and I teach them something and then they ask questions. So it's kind of the closest thing I'm doing right now. But I have 500 charts of twin flames that I'm studying for a book in order to determine the astrology of twin flames. And the thing I'm learning about twin flames is there is no such thing as a formula. So it is about understanding a range of things in your chart. So it's fascinating. I'm finding it just fascinating.
Wow, that is fascinating. Now, let me ask you one question about twin flames, and that's it, because that's a big topic. Do do you think that all twin flames come into union in a lifetime? Like if they're both of them planted at the same time, is it destined for them, or can they come in and out of their lives? I think that's the question people have, right? Is like, wait, so are they a soulmate? Are they your other half? Will they always find each other?
Like I said, there's no formula.
Okay,
So, so it's
like there is no rules.
so the words all or none or things like that
Yeah.
hardly ever align in this particular bucket of information. But what I will say to you is that twin flames are always connected. Separation is an illusion perpetrated by our 3D life. So once you get to the place of, well, I'm always connected to this other part of my soul, you release the attachment to the need to have a person standing in front of you. You don't have that need. And then guess what happens? They do stand in front of you because you're no longer in this place of like, when you're saying they're not with me, you're in the energy of lack. And so they are not standing in front of you. When you stop caring whether they stand in front of you, they'll stand in front of you. And you cannot lie to the universe. You can't be like, oh yeah, I totally don't believe that they need to be in my life. And the universe is like, nice try. Like,
You think you can fool me? Really?
you think you can mess with me?
Yeah.
So, but my own experience of twin flame has been such a fascinating journey of mirroring that I recognize that my person has been married for a really long time, and I've stumbled in and out of relationships. So that's not, it's like, it's not the same. He has a different experience than you do. Learning the same lessons in different ways. He's learning the same lessons as I did. And I just did them faster. I just learned them faster. So he's in, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're learning the same lesson. Isn't that insane? So I can see that. And when that person, he detaches, and I'm just like, cool, do your thing. Part of twin flames job, a big chunk of twin flames are to upend the old ways of doing relationship, the old ways of unhealthy relationships. I know you talk about that, the old ways of commitment, the old ways of, well, this is what we do. We get married and we live in the same house and we, da, 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 da. There's plenty of twin flames who live on the other side of the globe from each other, and it's perfectly fine. Even married, live in different houses, completely different way of doing it. And it's, I mean, I'm just having a ball paying attention to this because, this is one of the purposes that we have as twin flames, is to change that.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. I left that out when we were talking about changing in dynamics and structures in society, is the way that we have relations.
Yeah.
With our definition of what it means to be romantic partners with somebody, or to have a union
Yes.
with somebody. And, it really is exciting to think about how things will change. And that's a question I'd like to ask you, Mary Jo, is that, we, in this particular lifetime where you are Mary Jo and I'm Whitney, we only have so much time, right? Our soul lives on forever, but in our lifetimes, we might just see the beginnings of the crumbling, the shifting, the changes. But what do you see? And maybe it's based on the stars and the astrology, the planets, maybe it's based on your own intuition, but what do you think, if you had to say, what will we see in our lifetime in the next 30, 40, 50 years? What do you think will be the beginnings? I mean, we're already seeing it, but what do you think a substantial change will be?
I just feel that what will be, and I remember doing these readings 3 or 4 years ago about talking about how there is going to be more communal living. There is going to be more like when we were just talking about your client from college or your friend from college or whatever, who's like, I have 10 choices, right? I have 10 choices. I don't think money is going to be the same. I think we're going to destroy that whole paradigm of money, of what is a resource instead of, right, like, paper and coin, there's going to be an expansion of what resources means. There's going to be a orientation about, we've already been into the energy of love is love, right? We're already into that energy. And if me and you, like if I have a relationship with somebody and this is the way we do it, good, cool. No one gets to have an opinion besides us. There's not a lot of, you have to do it the way we do it. I forget, it was in a sitcom one time, again, a million years ago. And I think it was MASH, Frank Burns. This is a very old reference for some of you, but he was saying, they were talking about individuality. Hawkeye was talking about individuality, and he's like, don't you believe in individuality, Frank? And Frank's like, sure, as long as we all do it at the same time all together. And right, like that's an old way of thinking, that if you are doing something different from me, somehow it threatens me. And that's just an old paradigm that is being upended. I think the idea of work, the way we've created this, where people are like literally giving away the most valuable asset they have, which is their time and their life breath. They only have so many breaths on this planet. They're giving it away in exchange for security, which actually is a lie. We're already seeing that. There is no such thing. I mean, since the 90s, we're seeing there is no such thing as security. So people are like starting to do this, like, well, then why am I doing this? And why do I actually think I'm already retired, because I have shifted into something. I thought I was going to do this when I was retired. I thought I was going to read tarot and do astrology and I'm like, I guess I'm already retired, because, I don't ever expect to stop doing this. And I also, the struggle of that same idea, it's built into the tax code. It's built into the, how we do things with, you need so much money when your body falls apart and all of this kind of stuff. I just think the communal living will take up the slack for a lot of that. I think we're going to recognize that the way things have been structured through the eyes of big business, that's going to disappear. And hopefully in my lifetime. I don't know. Hopefully in my lifetime. But I really think money is the core element of so many of these things, that if that becomes upended, what we think is valuable, money is only valuable because we think it is.
Yeah.
And so if we stop thinking it's valuable, then what?
Right. And once we crack that illusion, what else are we going to start rethinking? And I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's what's going to happen, is it's almost this chain reaction of realizing that we are the creators of our reality, and we're not just beholden and handed, this is Earth and this is the reality of it. We've created it and we can recreate it at any time. And I think you're right. Something like money being cracked open and told, like, actually, this was an illusion. It was a mirage, which it is. Plain, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
And we'll say, well, what else was an illusion? And just like you said, security. Well, security, as we define it, making sure you have food and a house, we play into that game. But the reality is that we are secure. We're souls. We live
Yeah.
infinitely.
Yeah.
We are fine.
Right.
We always were. And we could live that way abundantly, harmoniously, with
Yes.
greater equality, where we're all having a nice time, and not with someone living in complete squalor and devastation and other people
Yes.
living in, as
Ridiculous amounts of abundance.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I do think it's going to be like this, little by little, this chipping away until things just start falling and people have to surrender and say, I guess it wasn't what we thought it was. And again, there's those of us who already
Right.
realize this, but it's going to be seen on
Yeah.
a larger scale, and it's going to be wild. What a fascinating time to be alive, right?
Seriously. And we are, I mean, that's the thing, like twin flames and all of these spiritual, like you were talking about, all of these spiritual topics and spiritual experiences that we're having are becoming more and more universal, becoming more and more that people are having, even people who you wouldn't think, people who are really tied to the 3D life and all of that kind of stuff. Death changes people. When you're ill for a while, it changes what you think is important. And there's a guy, I have this really awful Twitter feed. It's all my old producer and reporter friends, right? And there was one little piece of it where this young man, I just think he's awesome, going around asking people over 70, like, what's important. And people who are ill, people who are healthy, people, all different kind, and like the interesting comments that they have to share. And it's like, okay, but are you living that? You know, and some of them are, and some of them aren't. You know, some of them are, and some of them aren't. They know what's important, but our society has kept us in these silos, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when you speak of people, different people having these experiences, I think it's critical for people to note that even though change on a bigger scale might take a while, when we have these little experiences as an individual, because the macro and the micro are the same. And for the macro to
Yes.
change, we have to change. Well, we are a part of that. When we as an individual have an experience
Yes.
like connecting with this twin flame that makes us have a revelation, a deep, you know, soul retrieval of realizing a greater truth about ourselves, that's slowly, like if you think of a big mountain that's a volcano that's like slowly just moving by millimeters at every
Yeah.
whatever, that's what the individual is. And so when we, like, I think again about this eclipse season where some of us were just shocked by changes that brought up a deep,
Yes.
upsetting truth, but those challenging experiences of life are contributing to this greater shift of humanity, even at the smallest level of a
Yes.
relationship that ended and having to deal with the devastation and the beliefs that you held about yourself based on people leaving your life. You spoke earlier about attachment, I believe, and letting go of people leaving your life. I often
Yeah.
say that it's interesting to me when people don't believe in reincarnation because we live many different lives within this life.
Yes.
Things are created and die away within a lifetime.
Yeah.
Beautiful friendships you
Always.
thought would last forever, they're gone out of your life, and that's a
Yep.
death. And
Yeah,
so
it is a
being
death.
able to allow for that, it's a soul journey that's shifting humanity's concept about itself. And what each individual experiences is
Yeah.
just as important as humanity as a whole. It's a
Yes.
part of that.
And and there's, you know, the thing is, like, there needs to be the pioneers, and that Aries energy, that eclipse we just had is Aries energy. And a lot of us, and I've talked to a lot of them on my channel, because I do believe I attract a lot of the similar energy. It's like, as a pioneer, you know, if you're a pioneer, if you have an archetype of pioneer, you can tell a pioneer by how many arrows they have in their back.
Mm.
Okay. And it's because you're the one who's leading and taking, you know, don't turn around. Don't let that go. Let those haters go, because you're moving forward, and other people, when they see you moving forward, okay, now it's safe for me to take your hand. Now it's safe for me to do it too. Now it's safe for me to do it too. Now it's safe for me to do it too. And so it's important to have those voices out there. It's important to have, I don't feel like there's any such thing as competition. There's hundreds and hundreds of tarot readers on YouTube. I do collaborations with, I have done collaborations with a lot of them and everything like that. And it's like, there's no such thing as, if I'm doing a tarot reading and you're doing a tarot reading, that you're competing with me. Because the truth is, like, all of our voices are necessary so that people can find the one that they plug into that resonates with them. Because not everybody's going to resonate with my readings, and how dare I think that I'm the one that's going to have the resonance with everybody. You know, Sal has his resonance, and Otto has his, and Allie has hers, and sometimes we overlap, and a lot of times we don't. But there's, you know, 8 billion people on this planet, so there's a lot of voices that are needed.
They're all needed. And that's the other part that's going to be so exciting when humanity figures this out, is that every
Mhm.
single one of us has a brilliant light that is a unique piece of the greater mosaic, I like to call it. Right now, we live
100%.
as if like maybe like a few million people matter, right? They're a part of the bright mosaic, but what am I? I'm worthless. I don't matter. I'm not important.
Oh,
I'm nothing. And it's like such a bizarre thing when you think about it, because we're literally a piece of the infinite divine, which means like we are more magnificent and
yes.
powerful and infinite than we could ever imagine. But we have this condition on earth where we think, but how am I impressive? I don't have a big house. I don't have a great job. I've struggled my whole life, but the soul doesn't know that. So when we're able to move out of that connection of material things, external things defining us and our value, and we realize, we shake that off and we realize just me, this essence, because just as you described, the reason why there's no such thing as competition is because no one can have your voice. Mary Jo's voice, Mary Jo as the tarot reader, is unlike any other. And so is every other person. And when we figure that out, the competition ends. The competition that's killed us for thousands upon thousands of years, that's caused us to want to end human life, which is when you think about it, it makes no sense to kill other people to get what you want, but we justify it. But when we recognize that every single last person has a brilliance to share, then we're all just like partying down here. We're all just like, woo, what are you doing? What am I doing? Let's get together. Let's bring it together, which I really have this vision that that's what we're meant to be doing here, is having this like blast, this big old party.
I think that's right. Did you hear Charlie barking? So,
He likes it. He's
but
into it. He's like, yes.
he's into
Dogs
it.
know
He's
about
into
that.
it.
Dogs are having a good time all the time.
Right. I mean, I totally agree with everything you just said. And, you know, my own experience with, you know, family members and friends who have floated away, you know, or left abruptly or whatever it was that happened. It was just sort of like, that's meant to be. And they're now off on their own journey, learning their own lessons in their own way. You know, sometimes people can't hang with you. It's okay just to let go of them.
It's
It
okay.
really is. It's okay.
It is. It is. And that's I think one of the hardest things we learn is non-attachment. I love the analogy of it's a quote that says, be like the tree that birds fly and land on it and they fly away, and the tree has no preference. It just says, oh,
No.
okay, there you come, there you
Okay.
go. It's hard for humans. We're like, what? No, I gotta cling on to it. We're very clingy. We're like, I'm because there's a scarcity mindset, right? I can't lose this.
Yes.
What if I lose?
I
Who will I
know.
be? What will I do? How will I have support? We're all very codependent. We're all very believing that we need so
Yes.
much outside of ourselves. But that's the key. That's why sovereignty is so powerful. Is then the powers that have so much control of us right now will lose their power because we're not saying like, oh
Yeah.
yes, I'm dependent on you. I'm dependent on this paycheck
Nope.
and this, that, and the other thing to tell me who I
No.
am. And that's inevitable
No.
for humans because that's the ultimate truth of all beings. And we always find our way back to the truth. And
We
that's
do. And it's, you know, ego death. You know, you're talking about ego death essentially. And I keep thinking about the Aries eclipse that we just went through, because Aries is very much about sovereignty, about my own personal sovereignty. And that North Node I was talking about with you a while back, about your own personal North Node, there is a transiting North Node, which is also in Aries right now, which is also about us choosing our own personal sovereignty without it having to debilitate other people's sovereignty, right? Like the matching or the zodiacal pair is Aries and Libra is about we, and Aries is about me. And so those things have to balance, right? Those things have to balance.
Yeah. And just as you said, the complement between Aquarius and Capricorn with Aries and Libra is that Libra says, well, all of us together, but also like, you're pretty badass, Aries, like you're a real leader.
Yes.
Let's bring you on our team, but let's acknowledge that there is a team and it's not just the individual. So,
right. And it's not, and the downsides of those two, like Libra is like, I could fade into the woodwork and who would know? Aries is like a kind of a crusty jerk, like if he doesn't have his balance, right? So we need balance on all fronts.
Absolutely. Well, Mary Jo, this has been such a fun and lively conversation. I can't thank you enough for being a guest on the show. And maybe to close, I always ask people to say where people can find them, but maybe you could tell us a little more about the Soulful Revolution. And because that's a bigger picture type thing about your work. And I'd love to hear about that, but then how people can get involved with it, because you do have quite a few opportunities and options that people can be a part of it.
Right. Soulful Revolution started out to be tarot readings on YouTube, but I have such an amazing group of people who come to the channel all the time. My Pathfinder group, every Wednesday I do a live session with them, and then I'm now in 2024 I'm teaching them about harnessing the power of their own intuition, which is a really important thing. So I've added another half hour just for that purpose. So the bigger picture of Soulful Revolution is about getting to healthy, in whatever part of your life we're talking about here. It could be about relationships. It could be about, getting to healthy within yourself, getting to healthy within your work, within your career path, within your family, within whatever it is. And, you know, a lot of experiences we all have shared. I can see how many of those folks who come into Pathfinders who've had, it's shocking to me how many of them have had similar experiences with narcissistic people, or with people who have narcissistic tendencies, or people who hook on to things, attachment and unhealthy ways of being. So, you know, my job is always empowerment. And I believe that tarot, just like you said a while ago, tarot is really reading the room, okay? Reading the room energetically and giving you the power. Astrology, it's not like it's forced upon you. Oh my God, Saturn in the 5th house, I'm never going to be in love. Like, that's not it, okay? These are tools that you get to work with the levers of. Once you start understanding how it works, you're like, ah, okay, Saturn return, I see you coming. So I'm going to work with this. I'm going to surf the energies. So that is my job. And all the other things I do, there is a podcast coming out. There are books in the works. We're doing a retreat next year, and, you know, a physical retreat. I am not ready to announce that yet, but it'll be early in February next year. It's really about surfing the energies and being empowered, no matter what is showing up for you, no matter what it is. It's like there's a lesson in every single thing. And so Soulful Revolution is about really the evolution of someone's soul, is about taking those, and revolution. Sometimes you got to fight for it. Sometimes you've got to stand up for yourself and speak your truth. You don't always have to. It doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to. You shouldn't. You should. Okay. So that's what I like to, you know, talk about with Soulful Revolution, is that however many ways we can communicate those core beliefs that you have power, that's what we're going to do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that highlight of revolution, because to me, the age of the revolution that's coming isn't a revolting against anything. It's just a revolution of a revolutionary shift in how we view ourselves as human beings on this planet, what that means to be alive, and how we go about it. Right. And that's the revolution. And I think that that is needed, because again, it doesn't have to be about what you see so much of now, which is just people just screaming at one another and no one's listening. But when you speak ideas in a revolutionary way, you just put them out there, right? Which is also kind of like tarot, or I'm also a therapist. And so my way of understanding that is that I offer something, and that's it. I'm not there to tell anybody what to do or how to live their lives. Same with tarot. You say, this is what I'm seeing in the cards. You can take it, you cannot, but here's what I see. And that's the revolution we're coming into is, hey, this is a thought I have. This is a vision I have. This is what I believe can be possible for humanity. And I have this vision of people just being drawn towards new concepts because it feels aligned with them and it feels better than what we're doing now.
Feels good.
Right.
Feels good.
But guess what? The fun part is that the people who are the way showers, the speakers, the people that are illuminating that, I like to call them divine rebels, because you're speaking against what is not against, but you're speaking another way. You're offering a new concept, different ideas
from a place of love, from a place of love,
and not from greed, not from a place of wanting to dominate others, like leaders that we've seen over the past 100 years who did horrific things because they wanted that power, and that was it. So we can learn from that and say, that was the only reason. And we can look at that and say, where did that get us? And we can say, well, I would never want that. What I want is to inspire everybody, not to make them look at me. They say that the age of the, you know, the sage, the prophet is over. It's about all of us collectively coming together.
Yes, that's
and
right.
That's the revolution.
And look at the ascended masters. Ascended masters are those like Jesus and Buddha and Saint Germain, people who have walked on this planet and have worked their karma and have been leaders from a place of love, leaders from not a place of dominance or a place of hierarchical experience, but more from a place of love. And, you know, really inspiring millions of people around the globe. And I do think that there is going to be some awareness of, you know, this was not about self-aggrandizement. This is not about that. This is really about, you know, rebellions if rebellions collapse when they're not from a place of love, they will collapse. Any kind of rebellion, any kind of thing like that, it doesn't have staying power. There's no why there. There's no purpose behind it. It's just going toward power, which is going to go away. We're not going to be able to do that because everything is so kind of stratified now. There's all these different buckets where people can, you know, find their own empowerment. There's no need to go to one central place anymore.
Yes, yes, exactly. And then people can feel liberated to make their own choice and not feel that they have
Yes.
to follow any certain way other than exactly what feels right and true to their self, their
Yes.
inner wisdom, their higher knowing. So, well, I'm excited to be on this journey with you, Mary Jo. It's so great to connect with a fabulous, fantastic fellow rebel.
Fellow rebel, yes.
I love it. Okay, so I think you already said, but one more time for the audience, if people want to watch your YouTube channel, if they want to hear your readings, if they want to learn more about the Soulful Revolution, how can they find you?
So the YouTube channel is called Soulful Revolution TV. If you Google Soulful Revolution, you'll find us. You know, on the website, there's all kinds of classes and other kinds of things we do, but YouTube is like this core part of this. I post every single day. I'm going to be doing the May readings next week. You won't probably hear about that until much later, but I keep up with that. And you can find us at Soulful Revolution right on YouTube, and everything else stems from that.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much, Mary Jo. This was a blast of a conversation. Thank you for the work that you
Thank
do
you
as
too,
well.
Whitney. Thanks,
Take good
Whitney.
care. Bye.
You too.